Thomas Jefferson wrote this. History, I believe, furnishes no example of a priest-ridden people maintaining a free civil government. This marks the lowest grade of ignorance of which their civil as well as religious leaders will always avail themselves for their own purposes. In this case, priest-ridden means full of priests. He wrote, I understand now. I was crying because of this. There's so much that was written, and I realized there's a reason the early founders, they had lost hope in the Republic altogether. By the ends of their lives, and I had said this a few years ago. It's because they saw it falling into factions. Turning Point is a perfect example of a faction. It acts like it's doing something good, but it's no different than the Catholic Church. The difference with the Catholic Church is it's a foreign influence, and Americans decide to take their loyalties to the foreign influence, and there's nothing any man can do about it. That's why I was crying. I'm like, there's nothing. These men knew. They knew what happened in France. They knew what happened in English. I mean, the amount of what this man had to write about the Catholic Church, then just to go on and write everything about religious liberty. Because he knew everything else had been tried. England, Henry VIII running them out, France, all of these wars, all because of the Vatican, okay? I don't want to get up. It just was so sad reading this, because these men, we don't have men like this today, like that were so thoughtful in their thinking, that fully understood that the reason they didn't expect the Republic to make it is because the people would inevitably allow themselves to be controlled by priests. But they said it would happen with any religion. They talk about what I talk about, that that basically, Jesus was about him governing you, and this country gave you that. And then when the country itself decides, no, we're going to stand by the Vatican, and this is why the South was a problem. They wanted to keep their slavery. It was mostly Catholic, and it was like them aligning with their foreign influence, the Pope. So there's nobody that, that's what made me cry. I'm like, these men. I was bawling, because I thought these men worked so hard to create this Constitution to prevent the very thing that happened. Because you can, don't give me your Islam, don't give me your Patriot Act. None of that shit would have happened had the people realized what their responsibility was. And if you wanted to still take your talking points from Rome there, from the foreign influence, then you should live there. But you can't do that. You can't do that, because they knew that if we don't give religious liberty, then we're not following God. And if we do, then the people will take themselves into their own form of slavery, because God will not allow them to have the freedoms that the founders wanted you to have, that God Almighty direct you. But when you have the Pope there that's directing you, then that is how your country falls into less liberties. It's the people's fault. It's the people's fault. It's not Islam, it's not Muslim, it's not the Jews, it's definitely not the Jews. It's the people. Thomas Jefferson especially wrote about how the South, they wanted to remain themselves in slavery, because instead of letting God direct them, they wanted to let man, most especially the foreign influence man, to direct them. So what that Father Chiniquy that said that, that the Jesuits assassinated Lincoln, he said the same thing. He said that the Civil War was a result of the Vatican. And he said even in his day, he said the South still, they didn't want the freedoms that the Constitution offered. They wanted to be controlled by someone. They wanted man to control them instead of God. Thomas Jefferson to Charles Clary, 1850. I don't have all of this, but you can get the idea because there's so much. He wrote so much. So did John Adams. John Adams outright called the Pope, and it's a foreign power. And if the people choose to be pulled in by the mastery of that wickedness, claiming it's a priest, claiming it's some holy person, then you can't expect to then still have your liberties. I mean, it makes total sense. That's why I was crying, because I'm like, all this hard work, these men did everything they could, and yet the same thing, now it's happening even worse. You still have the Catholic Church, and now you have this Turning Point faction. And who is the majority of the people supporting that? Well, hell, you got Florida there that has a partnership with Turning Point. Same problem with the South. You think just because they don't have priests, it's the same problem. It's the same thing. And it's the people. It's the people. I mean, there's nothing that any government, there's nothing any of these men could have done. Nothing. They knew the people would allow another man, a religion, to tell them what to think instead of think on their own. So how can you possibly expect to live in a country with civil liberties when you yourself want to be enslaved under your religion? And he said, I abuse the priests indeed, who have so much abused the pure and holy doctrines of their master, and who have laid me under no obligations of retenance as to the tricks of their trade, the genuine system of Jesus, and the artificial structures. He even called out the Trinity. Where did the Trinity come from? Yeah, it's so funny that I read this. I mean, this was long, so long, because he made so many statements, so many. But nobody tells you why, because this country serves at the seat of them. And then the stupid people that want to do the same thing that the Catholic Church does, which is Turning Point. Because it's the same thing. You cannot have liberty if you want to leave in your mind in the hands of man to tell you what God says. The concern of Jefferson, Madison, and other founders was indeed beyond merely protecting the separation of church and state as a legal principle. They understood that for true liberty to exist in America, the people could not submit to any foreign power, such as the Vatican, claiming spiritual authority over them, while expecting to also maintain their political and religious freedoms. It makes perfect sense. Jefferson and Madison's efforts, like the Virginia Statute of Religious Freedom, were designed to ensure religious liberty as a matter of personal conscience, free from coercion or external religious dominion. And they knew that because these people knew what happened in England, they saw what happened in France, and they knew the Vatican was behind it. So when they wrote this, it wasn't them, for anybody out there that's in the Catholic Church that wants to claim otherwise, no, go read what he wrote. These people knew. If you wanted to give up your own conscience to let somebody, a foreign power in Rome, tell you how to think, then there's nothing these men can do to help you to keep your liberties, because you've handed it over to them, whether it's to the Pope in Rome or it's to the people heading up Turning Point. It's all the same problem. The people don't want to think for themselves.